The space station Haven 7 floated in the darkness between two great empires. It was a neutral place where humans and aliens could trade, repair their ships, and rest before long journeys. The station was old but well maintained, and thousands of beings from dozens of species called it home. Yuna worked in the repair bay on the lower deck. She was 28 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes that rarely showed emotion. Her job was simple. Ships came in broken, and she helped fix them. She had done this work for 6 years, and she was good at it. Today started like any other day. Yuna checked her tools, reviewed her work orders, and prepared for the morning shift. The bay smelled like engine oil and hot metal. She liked that smell. It meant honest work. Then the alarm came. A HFY warship was requesting emergency docking. The ship was called the Dominance, and it needed fuel and minor repairs. Yuna watched through the observation window as the massive vessel approached. HFY ships were built to look frightening. They had sharp edges and dark hulls covered in weapon ports. This one was no different. The HFY were a proud species. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. They believed they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds before the Galactic Union forced them to stop. Now, they followed the rules, but they never stopped believing they were better than everyone else. Yuna had worked on HFY ships before. The crews were usually rude but manageable. She expected this job would be the same. She was wrong. Captain Vorath walked off his ship like he owned the station. He was tall even for a HFY, and his uniform was covered in medals and symbols of rank. His forearms were thick with muscle, and his eyes were the color of dried blood. He looked around the docking bay with open disgust. "This place smells like humans," he said loudly. His voice was deep and harsh. "Where's the station commander? I demand immediate service." The dock workers glanced at each other but said nothing. They had seen officers like this before. It was best to stay quiet and let them talk. Yuna was assigned to handle the Dominance's intake paperwork. She walked toward Captain Vorath with a tablet in her hands, her face neutral and professional. "Welcome to Haven 7, she said. "I need to confirm your repair requests and fuel requirements. Standard safety inspection will take approximately 6 hours before we can begin work." Vorath's red eyes narrowed. 6 hours? "I am Captain Vorath of the HFY 3rd Fleet. I do not wait 6 hours for anything." "I understand," Yuna replied calmly. "But station regulations require safety checks on all military vessels. This is for everyone's protection, including your crew." "Your regulations do not apply to me," Vorath growled. He stepped closer to her. He was more than 2 feet taller than she was, and he used his size to intimidate. "You will begin work immediately, or I will report this station to the Galactic Council for obstructing military operations." Yuna did not step back. She had dealt with difficult customers before. Her voice remained steady. "Captain, I cannot change the safety protocols. They exist for good reasons. If you wish to file a complaint, the station administrator's office is on deck 12. But the inspection time will not change." For a moment, Vorath simply stared at her. His 4 hands clenched into fists. Around them, work in the docking bay had stopped. Humans and aliens alike were watching the confrontation. Vorath had never been refused by a lesser species. He had never been told to wait by anyone who was not a HFY superior. And he had certainly never been spoken to so calmly by a small human female, who showed no fear of him. His pride could not accept it. His upper right hand moved fast. The back of his fist struck Yuna across the face with enough force to lift her off her feet. She flew backward and hit the metal floor hard. Her tablet shattered beside her. The sound echoed through the bay. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence was absolute. Then Yuna moved. She placed her hands on the floor and pushed herself up. Her lip was split, and blood ran down her chin. A bruise was already forming on her cheek. She stood slowly, taking her time, showing no rush and no panic. When she was fully upright, she looked directly into Vorath's eyes. She did not speak. She did not cry. She did not run. She just looked at him. Vorath felt something strange in that moment. It was a feeling he had not experienced in many years. It started in his stomach and spread through his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was uneased around the bay. Every human had stopped working. The mechanics had put down their tools. The cargo handlers had released their loads. The engineers had stepped away from their consoles. All of them were looking at Vorath now. Their faces showed no anger. Their bodies showed no tension. They simply watched, quiet and still, like predators observing prey that had wandered too close. Vorath's second-in-command, Lieutenant Rin, rushed forward. She grabbed his arm with two of her hands. "Captain," she whispered urgently, "we should return to the ship, now." "Why?" Vorath demanded. "Because I disciplined this worker?" She was disrespectful. She needed to learn her place. "Captain, please." Rin's voice was shaking. "You do not understand what you have done." Vorath looked around the bay again. More humans were appearing. They came from doorways, from corridors, from offices. They did not approach. They did not speak. They just gathered, silent and watching. An old man in a security uniform stepped forward. His name tag read Hambin, and his face was completely calm. He looked at Yuna first. "Are you all right?" he asked. Yuna wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand. "I am fine," she said. "It was nothing." Hambin nodded slowly. Then he turned to Vorath. "Captain," he said, "I am chief of security for this station. I witnessed what just happened. For your own safety, I recommend you return to your ship and remain there until we can resolve this situation." "Resolve what situation?" Vorath demanded. "I am a captain of the Kelzari fleet. I have diplomatic immunity. You cannot touch me." Hambin smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Captain," he said softly, "no one here is going to touch you. That is not how we do things." He paused. "But I strongly suggest you return to your ship." Vorath wanted to argue. He wanted to show these humans that he was not afraid of them. But something in Hambin's eyes made him hesitate. Something in the way the humans stood so still, so quiet, so patient. He turned and walked back toward his ship. His crew followed quickly. Behind him, Yuna pulled out her personal communicator. She typed a short message to her brother Minho, who lived 3 systems away. The message was only 4 words. "Someone touched me today." She put the communicator away and returned to work. Across the station, Hambin walked to his office and made an encrypted call to Earth. The first part of something much larger had begun. Captain Vorath sat in his quarters aboard the Dominance, drinking bitter Kelzari wine. He was angry. He had been disrespected by a human worker, and when he had corrected her, everyone had looked at him like he was the one who had done something wrong. It made no sense. Humans were a young species. They had only been traveling among the stars for 200 years. The Kelzari had ruled their corner of the galaxy for thousands of years. Why should he, a decorated captain, feel nervous about striking one small human female? A knock came at his door. "Enter," he said. Lieutenant Rin stepped inside. She was younger than Vorath by 30 years, and she had spent most of her career studying other species. She was good at her job, which was why Vorath kept her close. But sometimes she worried too much. "Captain," she said, "we need to talk about what happened in the docking bay." "There is nothing to talk about," Vorath replied. The human was disrespectful. I reminded her of her place. This is how order is maintained. Rin closed the door behind her. Her face was serious in a way Vorath had rarely seen. Captain, do you know what a death world is? Vorath frowned. A planet with dangerous conditions. High gravity, extreme weather, predators. What does this have to do with anything? Earth is a death world, Rin said. It is classified as one of the most hostile habitable planets in known space. 70% of its surface is covered in salt water that most species cannot drink. Its weather includes hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and blizzards. Its wildlife includes venomous creatures, massive predators, and parasites that can kill in hours. Its bacteria and viruses are so aggressive that humans develop immunity systems that attack their own bodies. Vorath. So they come from a harsh planet. Many species do. No, Captain. You do not understand. Rin stepped closer. Humans did not just survive on Earth. They conquered it. They hunted their predators to extinction. They changed their climate. They bent their entire world to their will. And they did this before they had any advanced technology. They did it with rocks and sharp sticks and their own two hands. Vorath set down his wineglass. What are you trying to say, Lieutenant? Rin pulled out a data tablet and placed it on his desk. I am trying to tell you about the nightmare of Gorath IV. She activated the tablet. A holographic display appeared, showing a small moon orbiting a gas giant. 40 years ago, Rin said, the Kelzari and the humans had a border dispute. It was a minor conflict. We thought we would win easily. We sent 3 full divisions to capture a human outpost on this moon. 15,000 Kelzari soldiers against 500 human marines. Vorath nodded. He had heard of Gorath IV. It was not discussed much in military academies. The humans held that moon for 11 days, Rin continued. They had no reinforcements. They had no resupply. They ran out of ammunition on day 3 and started using Kelzari weapons taken from our dead soldiers. When they ran out of those, they fought with knives, tools, and their bare hands. She changed the display to show casualty reports. By the time we captured the outpost, we had lost over 10,000 soldiers. The humans lost 300. And, Captain, those 300 did not die easily. Our medical reports described injuries that should have killed them instantly, but they kept fighting for hours afterward. One human marine fought for 6 hours with a wound that had destroyed most of his internal organs. He killed 18 Kelzari soldiers before he finally died. Vorath stared at the numbers. They did not seem possible. Humans call Gorath IV a minor engagement, Rin said quietly. A footnote in their military history. They barely remember it. But we remember it, Captain. Every Kelzari commander is taught about that moon. We are taught one lesson. Do not fight humans unless you have no other choice. And never, ever make them angry. Vorath was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed. You are being dramatic, Lieutenant. That was a battle. Soldiers against soldiers. What happened today was nothing. I struck a civilian worker, a woman who repairs ships. What is she going to do? File a complaint with the station administrator? Rin shook her head slowly. You still do not understand. Humans do not separate civilians from soldiers the way we do. On Earth, every human learns to fight from childhood. Their sports are combat training. Their games teach strategy and violence. Their history is an endless record of wars fought against each other, because for thousands of years, they had no one else to fight. She leaned forward. That woman you struck today? I checked her records. She grew up in a region called Korea. Children there begin martial arts training at age 5. She has been learning how to kill with her hands for over 20 years. The only reason you are still alive is because she chose not to fight back. Vorath felt a chill run down his spine. but he pushed it away. She was afraid. She knew she could not defeat me. No, Captain. She was not afraid. She was patient. That is much more dangerous. Before Vorath could respond, an alert sounded on his communicator. He checked the message and frowned. "Ambassador Thresh is arriving at the station," he said. "Why would a senior diplomat come to a place like this?" Rin's face went pale. "He's coming because of you, Captain. He's coming because you struck a human. And now the Kelzari government is trying to contain the damage before it spreads." Meanwhile, 3 systems away, a cargo ship changed course. Minho had received his sister's message while unloading freight at a mining colony. He read the 4 words 3 times. Then he contacted his employer, told them he was taking emergency leave, and set his ship toward Haven 7 at maximum speed. Minho was 34 years old. He had been a Marine for 12 years before retiring to become a cargo hauler. He had fought in 6 engagements, including a classified operation that the military still would not discuss. His body carried 17 scars from bullets, blades, and 1 Kelzari claw. He was a quiet man. He rarely raised his voice. He had not killed anyone in 6 years, but someone had touched his sister. On Haven 7, Hambin sat in his office reviewing security footage. He watched the moment of the strike over and over. He watched Yuna fall. He watched her rise. He watched the way she looked at Vorath without fear. He was proud of her. She had handled it perfectly. His encrypted call to Earth had been answered quickly. A woman named Sujin had listened to his report without interrupting. When he finished, she had asked only one question. "Is the footage secure?" It was. "Good," Sujin had said. "Protect it. I will be there in 18 hours. Sujin was a diplomat. She had worked for Earth's government for 15 years. She was famous for 2 things: her cold smile and her ability to destroy careers. Without ever raising her voice, she was already on a fast ship heading toward Haven-7. The Kelzari had started something. The humans were going to finish it. 12 hours passed on Haven 7, and Captain Vorath began to notice something strange. Humans were everywhere at first. It seemed normal. The station had many human residents, and they went about their daily business like always. But as the hours went by, Vorath realized that wherever he or his crew went, humans were nearby. They were not doing anything threatening. They were not speaking to the Kelzari or blocking their path. They were simply present. A group of dock workers stood near the Dominance's landing gear, checking equipment that did not need checking. Engineers walked past the ship's hull every few minutes, looking at datapads and talking quietly. Civilians sat at windows that overlooked the docking bay, drinking coffee and reading, never looking directly at the ship, but always aware of it. Vorath sent 2 of his officers to buy supplies from the station market. They returned empty-handed and shaken. "The merchants would not sell to us," one officer reported. "They said their systems were down. All of them. Every human merchant had the same problem at the same time." "What about the alien merchants?" Vorath demanded. "They sold to us, but they seemed nervous. One of them whispered that we should leave as soon as possible. He said the humans were being too quiet." Vorath did not understand what that meant, but it made him uncomfortable. He ordered his crew to stay on the ship. That evening, Ambassador Thresh arrived at the station. He was an old Kelzari, over 200 years old, with gray skin that had faded to almost white. He walked slowly, supported by a cane made from the bone of some long-dead creature. But his eyes were sharp, and his mind was sharper. He came directly to the Dominance and demanded to see Captain Vorath. "Tell me exactly what happened," Thresh said. "Leave nothing out." Vorath explained. He described the human workers' disrespect, her refusal to speed up the inspection, and his decision to correct her behavior with physical discipline. When he finished, Thresh was silent for a very long time. "You struck a human civilian," the ambassador finally said. "In public. In front of witnesses." "She was disrespectful," Varth repeated. "She was doing her job." Thresh's voice cracked like a whip. "Do you have any idea what you have done? Do you understand the damage you have caused? I defended Kelzari honor. I showed these humans that we are not to be disrespected." Thresh laughed bitterly. "Honor? You think this is about honor? Captain, you have given the humans exactly what they have been waiting for. You have given them a reason. A reason for what? A reason to remind us why we signed the peace treaty 40 years ago." Thresh leaned heavily on his cane. "I was there at the end of the Gorath 4 campaign. I saw what the humans did to our soldiers. I helped negotiate the treaty because I knew we could not win. Not against them. Not ever." He pointed his cane at Varth's chest. "And now you have struck one of their civilians. You have hurt one of their people. Do you know what humans do when someone hurts their people?" Varth did not answer. "They protect their own," Thresh whispered. "Always, without exception. Without mercy. It does not matter if the human is a soldier or a worker or a child. If you hurt one of them, all of them become your enemy. And they do not forget. They do not forgive. They simply wait for the right moment, and then they destroy you." The next morning, Minho's cargo ship docked at Haven-7. He did not go to see his sister immediately. Instead, he walked to the station cantina and sat at a table near the window. He ordered tea and waited. Yuna had told him what happened in their brief communication. She had told him she was fine. She had told him not to do anything stupid. Minho had no intention of doing anything stupid. Stupid was fast and loud. Stupid got you caught. Minho was going to be slow and quiet. He sat in the cantina for 3 hours, drinking tea and watching people come and go. Word had spread quickly among the humans on the station. They knew who he was. They knew why he was there. Some of them nodded to him as they passed. Others simply looked at him with knowing eyes. No one asked questions. No one needed to. Eventually, 4 Kelzari officers entered the cantina. They were young and arrogant, talking loudly about how boring this station was and how they could not wait to leave. One of them noticed Minho sitting alone and decided to have some fun. "Look at this human," the officer said to his friends. "Sitting by himself like a lost animal. Where's your pack, human? Did they abandon you?" Minho did not look up from his tea. "I heard about what happened yesterday," the officer continued. "Your female was disrespectful to our captain, so he taught her some manners. Maybe someone should teach you some manners too." The other Kelzari laughed. Minho finally looked up. His face was calm. His eyes were empty. He raised his right hand and held it open, palm up. The hand was covered in old scars. Some were burns. Some were cuts. Some were marks that could only have been made by Kelzari claws. "I got these killing Kelzari on Gorath 4, Minho said softly. "I was 19 years old." The laughter stopped. "I was part of the 3rd wave," Minho continued. "We arrived on day 4. By then, most of my friends from training were already dead. I fought for 7 more days with almost no sleep and no resupply. On the last day, I killed a Kelzari commander with a piece of broken metal because I had nothing else left." He lowered his hand. "I'm not looking for trouble. I just want to drink my tea. But if you want to teach me manners, you are welcome to try." The cantina was completely silent. The Kelzari officers looked at each other. Then they turned and walked away without another word. After they left, a human woman at the next table raised her coffee cup in a small salute. Minho nodded back. Later that day, Captain Vorath decided he had waited long enough. The safety inspection was complete, and his ship was ready to leave. He ordered his crew to prepare for departure. But when the navigation officer tried to release the docking clamps, nothing happened. "Captain," the officer reported, "the clamps are malfunctioning. They will not release." "Then call the station and demand they release us manually," Vorath commanded. The communication officer made the call. A human voice answered pleasantly. "I am sorry," the voice said. "We are experiencing technical difficulties with your docking bay. Our engineers are working on the problem, but repairs will take approximately 6 hours." Vorath threw his communicator against the wall. In Hambin's office. The security chief smiled and made a note in his log. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Sujin would arrive in just a few more hours. And then the real conversation would begin. Sujin arrived at Haven 7 on a small diplomatic ship that looked plain and unremarkable. This was intentional. Sujin did not like to draw attention to herself. She preferred to work quietly in meeting rooms and offices, where words were more powerful than weapons. She was 42 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. She had spent 15 years as a diplomat for Earth's government, and in that time, she had ended 3 political careers, negotiated 7 trade agreements, and prevented 2 wars. She was very good at her job. When she stepped off her ship, Hambin was waiting for her. "Welcome to Haven 7, he said. "I have prepared a briefing room." "Show me the footage first," Sujin replied. They walked to Hambin's office, where he played the security recording of the incident. Sujin watched it 3 times without speaking. She saw Yuna explain the safety protocols. She saw Vorath lose his temper. She saw the strike, the fall, and the moment Yuna rose again. "She handled it well," Sujin said finally. "She did," Hambin agreed. "The entire station has been talking about it. Humans and aliens alike. Good. Public sympathy will be useful." Sujin turned away from the screen. "What is the current situation?" "Captain Vorath has been confined to his ship for the past 16 hours. Ambassador Thresh arrived yesterday and has been trying to negotiate a quiet resolution. The docking clamps are still experiencing technical difficulties." Sujin smiled slightly. "I am sure our engineers are working very hard on that problem." "Around the clock," Hambin replied with a straight face. "And what about Yuna's brother?" "Minho arrived this morning. He is currently in the cantina. He has not approached the Kelzari directly, but his presence is known." Sujin nodded. "Good. Let him stay visible. Fear is most effective when it has a face." She walked to the window and looked out at the station. Thousands of people lived here, humans and aliens working together in peace. It was exactly the kind of place that the Galactic Union had been built to create. And now one arrogant Kelzari captain had threatened all of it. "I want a meeting with Captain Vorath," Sujin said. "Tell Ambassador Thresh that Earth's diplomatic corps requests a formal discussion regarding the incident. Use polite language. We are not making demands. We are simply requesting a conversation." The message was sent. Within an hour, a response came back. Ambassador Thresh agreed to the meeting. Captain Vorath would attend under protest. The meeting was held in a small conference room on the station's administrative level. Sujin sat on one side of the table. Hambin stood behind her, silent and watchful. On the other side sat Ambassador Thresh, looking old and tired, and Captain Vorath, looking angry and defensive. "Thank you for meeting with me," Sujin began. "I understand this situation is uncomfortable for everyone. My goal today is to find a resolution that allows all parties to move forward with their dignity intact." "I have diplomatic immunity," Vorath said immediately. "Whatever your resolution is, you cannot touch me. I am protected by Galactic Union law." Sujin nodded calmly. "You are correct, Captain. You have diplomatic immunity. Under normal circumstances, we cannot take any legal action against you for what happened. Then, we have nothing to discuss. I disagree. Sujin folded her hands on the table. You see, Captain, while we cannot take legal action against you, there are many things we can do. Let me explain your options. She pulled out a datapad and slid it across the table. Option A is simple. You make a public apology to Yuna for your unprovoked assault. You pay full reparations to her family according to Galactic Union standards for personal injury. You voluntarily resign your command. The incident is recorded in official Union records, and the Kelzari government releases a statement condemning your actions. Vorath laughed harshly. You want me to apologize to a dock worker? To give up my command because I disciplined a disrespectful servant? This is absurd. Then let me explain option B, Sujin continued, her voice still calm. If you refuse option A, the security footage of the incident will be released to human media networks. We have already sent copies to 12 different organizations. They are waiting for my signal. She leaned forward slightly. Humans do not like seeing their people hurt, Captain, especially when the attacker faces no consequences. The footage will be viewed by billions of humans across dozens of worlds. They will see a Kelzari officer strike an unarmed civilian woman without provocation. They will see her rise again without crying or begging. They will be proud of her and angry at you. Vorath shifted in his seat but said nothing. Within days, human governments will demand your extradition to stand trial for assault. The Kelzari government will be forced to choose: hand you over or face a diplomatic crisis with humanity. Either way, your career is over. But with option B, it ends in shame and scandal rather than quiet resignation. You are threatening me, Vorath growled. No, Captain. I am explaining consequences. Sujin's voice did not change. You made a choice when you struck Yuna. Now you must face the results of that choice. I am simply offering you a chance to control how bad those results are. Ambassador Thresh placed a hand on Vorath's arm. Captain, perhaps we should consider. Vorath shook him off. I will not be bullied by humans. I have served the Kelzari Empire for 60 years. I have diplomatic immunity. Your laws cannot touch me. You are correct, Sujin said. Our laws cannot touch you. She stood up and walked to the window. From here, she could see the docking bay where the Dominants sat waiting. But laws are not the only power humans have, Captain. We are not like other species. We do not need governments to act for us. We protect our own individually and personally, in ways that no law can prevent and no immunity can stop. She turned back to face him. Right now, your ship is held by malfunctioning docking clamps. Your crew cannot buy supplies because every human merchant is experiencing technical problems. Your officers were confronted in a cantina by a human veteran who killed Kelzari soldiers on Gorath 4. None of this is illegal. None of it violates any treaty. But all of it is happening because you hurt one of us. Vorath's face had gone pale. Option C, Sujin said softly, is that you refuse both options and try to leave anyway. But I do not recommend option C. She looked out the window again. Minho was visible on the observation deck below, standing with his arms crossed, watching the Dominants. That man down there is Yuna's brother. He traveled 3 systems to be here. He has not broken any laws. He has not made any threats. But if something were to happen to you, Captain, if your ship experienced an accident, or if you had a medical emergency, or if you simply disappeared, no one would be able to prove he was involved. She turned back to Vorath. Humans are very good at not being proven guilty. We have thousands of years of practice. The room was silent for a long moment. You are bluffing, Vorath said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Perhaps, Sujin replied. But ask yourself this, Captain. Are you willing to bet your life on that? She sat back down and folded her hands. Take some time to think about your options. I will wait for your answer. She smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Captain Vorath spent 3 hours alone in his quarters after the meeting with Sujin. He sat in the dark, drinking Kelazari wine that had lost its taste, thinking about everything that had happened since he struck that human woman. He had expected fear. He had expected submission. That was how the universe worked. The strong dominated the weak, and the weak accepted their place. It was simple. It was natural. It was the way things had always been, but humans did not follow these rules. The woman had not been afraid. She had looked at him with calm eyes while blood ran down her face. And in that moment, Vorath had felt something shift in the universe. He had felt for the first time in decades that he might not be the predator in this situation, and then the humans had gathered. Not to fight, not to shout, not to threaten. They had simply appeared, silent and watchful, forming an invisible wall around him that he could not break through. They had trapped him without laying a single hand on him. Now he understood what Lieutenant Rin had been trying to tell him. Humans were dangerous not because they were violent, but because they were patient. They did not need to attack. They simply had to wait and watch, and make you understand that they could destroy you whenever they chose. Vorath had 60 years of military service. He had fought in a dozen campaigns. He had killed enemies with his own hands. But sitting in his dark quarters on Haven 7, he felt more helpless than he had ever felt in his life. Ambassador Thresh came to see him near midnight. "Have you made your decision?" the old diplomat asked. Vorath did not answer immediately. He stared at the wall, where his medals and commendations hung in neat rows. 60 years of service. 60 years of building his reputation, his honor, his legacy. All of it would be gone tomorrow. "If I choose option A," he said slowly, "what happens to my crew?" "Nothing. They will return home without penalty. The blame falls entirely on you. And my family? They will be protected. The scandal will be significant, but it will be seen as your failure alone. Your children will not suffer for your mistakes." Vorath closed his eyes. "I will do it," he said. "I will apologize." The ceremony was held the next morning in the station's main plaza. Hundreds of people gathered to watch, human and alien alike. Word had spread quickly about what was happening, and everyone wanted to see it. Yuna stood at the center of the plaza, wearing her simple work uniform. The bruise on her face had darkened to purple, and her split lip was still swollen. She looked small and ordinary, like any other worker on the station. But she was not alone. Minho stood beside her, his arms crossed, his face calm. Hambin stood nearby with several security officers. Sujin waited at the edge of the crowd, watching everything with sharp eyes. And throughout the plaza, humans stood in small groups, silent and watchful, just as they had been since the incident began. Captain Vorath walked into the plaza alone. He had removed his medals and his symbols of rank. He wore a simple Kelazari uniform, undecorated and plain. For the first time in 60 years, he looked like an ordinary person. Ambassador Thresh had prepared a statement for him to read. It was carefully written, full of diplomatic language and formal apologies. Vorath held the paper in his hands, but when he stood before Yuna, he could not make himself read it. Instead, he spoke his own words. "I struck you because I believed you were beneath me," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. "I believed that humans were a lesser species, that you were weak and easily broken. I believed that I could do whatever I wanted to you without consequences." He paused. "I was wrong." The plaza was completely silent. "I have served the Kelazari Empire for 60 years. I have fought battles and commanded ships, and earned honors that few officers ever receive. But in one moment of arrogance, I destroyed everything I spent my life building. And I did it because I could not accept being told to wait by a human woman." He looked at Yuna directly. "You did nothing wrong. You were doing your job." You treated me with respect, even though I did not deserve it. And when I hurt you, you responded with dignity that I could not match. Vorath lowered his head. I apologize for what I did. Not because I have been forced to, but because I finally understand that I was the weak one. I was the one who could not control himself. I was the one who failed. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Yuna stepped forward. She was shorter than Vorath by more than 2 feet. She had to look up to meet his eyes. But somehow, in that moment, she seemed taller than he was. On my world, she said quietly, we have a saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. She paused. You stuck out, Captain. And now you have been hammered. She turned and walked away without looking back. The crowd began to disperse. Vorath stood alone in the center of the plaza, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life not an hour later. The docking clamps miraculously began working again. The Dominants departed Haven 7 under the command of Lieutenant Rin, who had been promoted to acting captain. Vorath traveled home on a diplomatic transport, his career over, his name ruined out as Rin guided the ship away from the station. She looked back at Haven 7 through the rear observation port. She could see humans moving through the corridors, working at their jobs, living their lives. They had already forgotten about Vorath. He was nothing to them now. She made a personal note in her log. Never strike a human. Never threaten a human. Never underestimate a human. They do not forgive. They do not forget. And they are never, ever alone. They are a species that conquered their own planet before they had technology, and they have not changed since then. They are patient. They are united. And when you hurt one of them, you hurt all of them. I will carry this lesson for the rest of my life, and I will teach it to every officer who serves under me. Humans are not our enemies, but they will be, if we make them so. She closed her log and turned away from the observation port. On Haven 7, life returned to normal. Yuna went back to work in the repair bay. Her co-workers treated her the same as before, though a few of them smiled at her more often than they used to. The bruise on her face faded over the following weeks, and soon there was no visible sign of what had happened. Minho stayed on the station for a few days before returning to his cargo route. Before he left, he shared a meal with his sister in a small restaurant overlooking the stars. "Thank you for coming," Yuna said. "You did not need me," Minho replied. "You handled everything yourself." "Maybe, but it was good to know you were here." Minho nodded. He did not smile often, but something in his eyes softened. "That is what family is for," he said. "That is what humans are for. We take care of each other." They finished their meal in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go through the station's docking bays, somewhere out in the galaxy. Captain Vorath was learning to live with his shame. His story was being told in Kelzari military academies as a warning to future officers. His name had become a lesson about the dangers of arrogance, but on Haven 7, no one talked about him anymore. He was not worth remembering. Yuna looked out at the stars and thought about all the ships she would repair, all the travelers she would help, all the ordinary days that would follow this one dot. It was just another day, and that was exactly how she wanted it.